Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Agency meeting for Tuesday, May 2nd, 7 p.m. Can we have a pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Fire evacuation procedures. If there's an emergency in the building, there's a door to the back of the room, or you can go out the door to my left, down the stairs, and away from the building. Roll call, please.
Donna Corbin-Savinsky.
Here.
Kevin Zorda.
Here.
Virginia Higley here. Robert Hendrickson.
Here.
Ann Collins.
Here.
Nancy Martin.
Here.
Phil Kober.
Here.
And Sean Dean is absent.
Right. Okay. Next on the agenda is public communication. Is there anybody in the audience that wants to speak on items not on the agenda? Does anybody want to speak on items not on the agenda? And one last time, speak on items not on the agenda. Seeing none. Agent correspondence. Today we received email Georgie forwarded to us regarding DPNs from the attorney. We'll be discussing this June 1st at the training, hopefully.
Okay.
Okay. They have some more data for us. Approval minutes for April 18th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of April 18th, 2023.
Second.
Okay, discussion.
Madam Chair, I just had two quick typographical errors to highlight. On page 3, the last paragraph, third line down, it says an aerial photo. The word aerial was misspelled. And then on page 5, the second full paragraph, it's referring to Lori Longi, and it spells L-O-R, so L-O-R-I.
Yeah. On top of that, her name is spelled wrong throughout the whole agenda, the meeting minutes. It's L-O-N-G-H-I. And they also misspelled Nancy's name on page 4, fourth paragraph. They forgot the T for Martin. Any more discussion? Okay.
Donna Corbin.
As amended? You wanna do
As
that?
amended, Donna
As
Corbin-Savinsky.
Yeah. Yes.
Kevin Zorda.
Yes.
Virginia Higley, yes. Robert Hendrickson.
Yes.
Ann Collins.
Yes.
Nancy Martin.
Yes.
Phil Kober.
Yes.
7 in favor, motion passes. We also have the minutes from our site walk special meeting, April 21st.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes of our special meeting.
Second.
Jenny, seconded. Discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Donna Corbin-Savinsky.
Yes.
Kevin Zorda.
Yes.
Virginia Higley, yes. Robert Hendrickson.
Yes.
Ann Collins.
Yes.
Nancy Martin.
Abstain.
Phil Kober.
Abstain.
5 in favor, 2 abstain, motion passes. Next, I'm gonna put that aside. Next, we have our town attorney report we received dated April 24th regarding items in litigation. So we have that. Next is continued public hearings. So let me get my paperwork out for that. So I need a motion to open, to go into public hearing.
I will make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
92 Post Office Road.
Madam Chair, is it motion to open or resume?
Continue.
Thank you.
And I seconded it.
Discussion? No? Roll call? What time is it?
Donna Corbin-Savinsky.
Yes.
Kevin Zorda.
Yes.
Virginia Higley, yes. Robert Hendrickson.
Yes.
Ann Collins.
Yes.
Nancy Martin.
Yes.
Phil Kober.
Yes.
7 in favor, motion passes. So we're going to open the public hearing. Continue the public hearing, sorry. So I'll explain the rules. The purpose of the public hearing is to allow the public to speak on items regarding the application, to raise concerns for or against the application. The agents and staff cannot answer any questions or concerns at this time. The statements from the public are for the purpose to be considered in deliberations during our regular meeting piece. As this is a continuation, we will start with the public statements only regarding topics of the public hearing and areas of concerns for the inland wetlands regulations. Please do not bring up other agencies or commissions regulations or concerns. All those wishing to speak should have signed a sign-up sheet, which I have right here. We'll start off with 5 minutes each, and then if we need to go a second time, we'll keep going. At any time during the hearing, if it becomes unruly or unmanageable, I will call a recess and we'll stop it. We will then hear, after the public, we'll then hear from the applicants to address any issues and concerns, and then from the agents and the staff. So before we start with the public, though, we did get a letter that I want to read. So, and everybody received a copy of that today. This would go under public communication piece. This is from Attorney Hinckley and Allen. It was addressed to myself at Town of Enfield and Inland Wetlands regarding IW 677, 92 Post Office Road, Enfield. Application for the development of a single-family home by Winbrook Homes LLC, owner applicant, map 47, lot 10, R44 zone. Dear Chair Corbin Sabinski, I represent the interests of Michael and Michelle Menard, the owner of the real property and improvements located at 94 Post Office Road. Ms. Menard acquired her property by deed dated September 7, 2021, and recorded at volume 2811, page 897 of the Enfield Land Records. Ms. Menard owns the property adjacent to the property which is the subject of the above reference application. Ms. Menard took title to the property together with and subject to the benefits, burdens, and encumbrances as set forth in a stipulated judgment in the case of Marilyn Tyler versus the Town of Enfield, docket number HHD CV09 5032569-S, dated October 7, 2016, a certified copy of which is on file in the Enfield Land Records. I represented Marilyn Tyler in her lawsuit against the Town of Enfield referenced above, and accordingly am very familiar with the judgment that was entered. Pursuant to the stipulated judgment, the town acquired lots 1, 2, and 7 of Sunnybrook Farms subdivision. The stipulated judgment further provided that surface water runoff from lots 3, 4, 5, and 6 of the subdivision could continue to drain onto the land being acquired by the town. The stipulated judgment did not contain any provisions permitting surface water runoff from the 3 lots being acquired by the town, including Lot 2 that was subsequently sold to Winbrook Homes to drain onto the land by Ms. Menard. The stipulated judgment further provided the benefits, burdens, and encumbrances set forth in the judgment shall run with the land. For some explained reason, the deed from the town to the Winbrook Homes does not make reference to or make clear that the deed and property are subject to the stipulated judgment. Of course, the failure to include a reference to the stipulated judgment does not mean the property is not subject to stipulated judgment. Accordingly, please be advised that Ms. Menard and any other affected landowner will take all steps necessary to enforce her or their rights regarding the stipulated judgment. I have enclosed for the agency's review a consideration of communication from Jeffrey S. Board, PELS. Mr. Board, who was for a number of years the town engineer for Enfield and then became the town engineer and director of public works for Summers, provided expert opinions in the Marilyn Tyler versus Town of Enfield case referred to above. Mr. Board's opinions related to the flooding issues related to Beeman's Brook and the Sunnybrook Farm subdivision. Mr. Board recently visited the site, including the properties owned by Ms. Menard and Winbrook Homes. Based upon his review of the proposed plot plan and previous town comments, Mr. Board stated, I agree with the engineering department comment relating to the surface water runoff at the eastern property line. The plot plan should be revised to show a swale with a positive slope directed away from side yard 94 Post Office Road, Ms. Menard's property. This can be shown by revising the proposed contour lines with spot elevations at a high point and along the swale. The western and rear sections of 92 Post Office Road are located in the floodplain of Beeman's Brook. There are known downstream flooding problems along the brook, and future property owners of this lot should be made aware that these sections of their property are located in a floodplain and should remain as is. These areas are located in the upper reaches of Beeman's Brook watershed and are critical for flood storage to protect the downstream residential areas. A note could be put on the plan stating that these areas are located in a floodplain and should be preserved. The Enfield IWWA is charged with regulating activities affecting wetlands and watercourses within the town and ensuring the activities on properties within the town not only do not cause environmental impact to wetlands or watercourses, but to properties that are threatened by the proposed regulated activity. Connecticut General Statute, Section 22A 41 and 22A 42. The undisputed evidence before the agency is that in the absence of adequate measures, surface water from the Winbrook Homes property has been discharging onto Ms. Menard's property. The issue became more severe following the unpermitted cutting of trees on the Winbrook Homes property. The current plans will only make the situation worse. The situation identified Ms. Menard and Mr. Board the requirements for roof leaders and the development of a swale and other measures designed to direct surface water runoff away from the Menard property are easy to implement and not expensive. They and any other measures that make sense should be required before any further approvals are issued. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this letter to the agency. It remains a hope Ms. Menard that litigation of these matters will not be necessary. Very truly yours, Hinckley, Allen, and Snyder, LLP. Jeffrey Merriman? Did I say that right? He also enclosed an email sent from Jeffrey Board dated Monday, April 24th regarding the site plan. What he says in the email was quoted in the letter, the paragraph. So I'm not going to reread that because it's word for word. So with that being said, we will now hear from the public. So, Lori Longi. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pushing up. Okay.
Lori Longi, 1427 Enfield Street. Last meeting, I forgot to put my qualifications on the record. I am a Connecticut licensed certified general appraiser. I specialize in complex land appraisals. I have appraised floodplain properties, and I have been admitted by the courts for my appraisal work. I'm also a licensed builder. I want to point out on the applicant's application that he states the property is not in a watershed. There has been court testimony, and it's already been documented, that this property is in the Beemans Brook watershed. A once dry drainage ditch is full of a full course water course. The property has not been fully flagged, and there are questions on the flags in the rear of the property. On the site walk, I saw ferns located prior to the wetlands flag behind the large stump on the property. Somehow, we were not able to go over the property line that abuts the town property. The property line that abuts the town's open space land is the known flood storage, which is, according to your wetlands regulation, a watercourse, channel, waterway, or intermittent watercourse because it fills with water based upon the lower elevation of the overflowing conditions of the brook. In the past 2 weeks, both rainstorms, this area was filled with water for many days. I went onto the town's property, approximately 15 feet from the sidewalk and about 10 feet from the property line of 92 Post Office Road, on April 23rd, and my boots overflowed with water. They were 7.5 inches tall. Because of the grass, many people may not realize the water is beneath the grass, and it is the floodplain. And there's some pictures of me standing in there. You can see my shoes are not visible in the photo. There are areas that the water can be seen, and I've attached some photos. I was hoping at the site visit that the northwest side of the property would be looked at. That is why at the last meeting, I brought these court case photos for you so that you could see the property And that was when the grass was all cut, so you could also see the topography. And you could clearly see the elevations. This is the area of the flood storage noted by Jeff Board in the letter from the attorney. The actual elevation is much lower than the sidewalk. Jeff explained while we walked the area on April 24th that there is no FEMA detailed study, but they know that it floods, and that's why in 2008 they delineated it on the map to alert people that it floods. If that area is filled in, then it takes the storage away, which creates more flooding downstream. The flood storage is meant to detain water for a slower release. Floodplains are not a straight line on a map. They follow the contour line of the lowest elevation. This was a very important point because the front north corner of 92 Post Office Road is at the same low elevation as the town's property next to it, and you could see that in blue. I honestly do not know how the board can approve a permit without knowing the location of the wetlands on the property boundary between this property and the town's property on Lot 1. It was already determined to be a high-value wetlands. There is a water course and flood storage. I have to ask you if you know exactly where the wetland boundaries are on that side of the property. We already know that the flagging that was done in 1998 and recertified by Michael Granulati in 2006 does not apply because it predated the water course, the water, and the flooding on lots 1, 2, and 7, which is why the court case started because of the water flooding on lots 1, 2, and 7. Based on the court case, this property cannot drain onto 94 Post Office Road, which it is doing since the trees were cut. There has to be a swale and piping to show on the plot plan to prevent the continuation of this runoff and keep the water on 92 Post Office Road or run the water to the street. It must be noted on the site plan that the natural vegetation needs to remain and the elevation cannot be filled in because it's the floodplain storage. The applicant states no fill is to be brought in. The property needs to be flagged with the information of today and not the old information of the flagging prior to the water, flooding, and the stream. Thank you.
Thank you. I was just going to say, you're running out of time.
I was close.
Next, Michelle Menard. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Menard. I live at 94 Post Office Road, which is directly east to the applicant property. During the site review last week, you were able to see the proposed building location in the area where that water pools on the applicant property, and then later runs off onto my property and down into the area of the applicant's wetland flag on the property line. I want to point out that that low spot or natural swale, as it's kind of been referred to, does not drain forward towards the street because it is at a lower elevation than the existing sidewalk. So the water will not flow uphill towards the street, but it flows downhill onto my property and then into the wetlands onto both properties. Around that flag, it kind of starts crossing back into 92 and onto my property. The applicant's plan, narrative, and comments made during these proceedings do not seem to account for this and provides inconsistent information. The application states that all stormwater will be infiltrated in the yard, but that's not what we're seeing now. The project narrative and stormwater runoff document states that stormwater from the proposed house roof will be captured by gutters and leaders and directed away from the house to infiltrate in the back of the property, and that no stormwater will be directed directly into the wetland area, but the wetlands are also in the back of the property. The narrative also indicates that the proposed driveway cross-section will direct most stormwater to the sides and allow it to infiltrate into the property. The plan submitted shows the grade of that turnaround for the driveway sloping down toward the low spot I identified earlier and seems to misrepresent the elevation of the sidewalk compared to this low spot. Currently, with only the water from both yards and parts of my driveway, this area does not infiltrate quick enough, but rather it runs off into the wetlands. The applicant indicated on the site walk that the slope from the proposed driveway and house would be similar in elevation and distance away as mine is currently. During heavier rains, the runoff is easily photographed, as I previously submitted to you guys. But even in lighter rains, it's still running off in a similar fashion, but to a lesser extent. It's kind of harder to photograph, but if you go out there, you can see it. I do not see how adding an additional driveway and gutter runoff from the proposed house will reduce the existing runoff without making changes to the plan. I recently met with Jeffrey Board, a professional engineer, on site, and he indicated that the plan should be revised to clearly indicate a swale with positive slope away from my property line. This outlines my first concern regarding the impact and increase in stormwater runoff to my property. My second concern I want to discuss with you is whether or not it's even appropriate for stormwater runoff to be going into these natural wetlands, or if it should be directed elsewhere. Section 8.8 of Chapter 8 of the 2004 Connecticut Stormwater Quality Manual, which is referenced in the town wetlands regulations, which I've attached to these comments, states that using natural wetlands as stormwater treatment practices is also highly undesirable. Increases in pollutants, sediments, and flashiness of the system degrade the wetland and result in a reduction of habitat complexity, leading to reductions in biodiversity. In general, stormwater runoff to vernal pools should be maintained at pre-construction levels to avoid increases or decreases in water levels in hydro period. This proposed plan shows and discusses stormwater discharge towards the back of the property, where the wetlands are. In current conditions, as I'm regularly seeing, shows that the soil does not infiltrate as well as indicated by the applicant. The Enfield Wetlands regulations indicate that your decisions related to allowing activities should consider the environmental impact of the proposed activity on wetlands or watercourses, and whether there are feasible and prudent alternatives to activity that would cause less or no environmental impact. There appears to be feasible and prudent alternatives that would direct stormwater runoff from this proposed house and driveway in a direction other than towards the wetlands. I feel that both these concerns need to be adequately addressed before the application should be approved. But at a minimum, there should be a condition added to the approval to ensure mitigation strategies are added to not allow runoff onto my property or into the wetlands. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is David Longi.
David Longi, 1427 Enfield Street. I am a licensed builder, landscaper, and farmer for over 45 years. On Friday, April 21st, 2023, I was able to attend a limited site walk at 92 Post Office Road, of which many things were not addressed. The property pins of the lot were not even marked, the house not even staked on the lot. I am familiar with this property starting about 35 years ago, picking pumpkins on the McCricky farm, and this was a very dry site. I remember Mr. McCricky plowing and harrowing the entire site with a two-wheel drive Massey Ferguson tractor. I watched this property turn into a wet site, starting with the development of the Brooks Brothers warehouse on Post Road. Then the site turned into a flood zone with the development of 7 houses on Post Road. Sunday, April 24th, Post Road was closed due to water runoff over the road. This is a common occurrence. This problem is getting worse, and recently the town had to replace a head wall at approximately 33 Oliver Road. This is still not allowing adequate flow under the road, and this should be addressed with the Army Corps of Engineers and DEP. This matter will only get worse with another home. The applicant will have approximately 3,000 square feet of impervious soils added to that lot, 14,000 gallons more of water to be drained during a heavy storm. Have any studies been done on this issue regarding stormwater management? Also, I saw on the site ferns which were approximately 30 feet from the proposed house and away from the supposed new wetlands flagging. On the north side of Post Office Road was covered with phragmites. This plant is a typical wetland soil. The proposed water main is 15 feet away. The existing gas service, which was installed before the road was paved, appears to be right in front of the flood zone and the flood storage area. This was a beautiful 7-lot subdivision turned into 4 buildable lots without any impact to wetlands. You have to consider the stipulant judgment says no water can drain the 94 Post Office Road. You have to consider the impact of a fifth house will have on 94 Post Office Road. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Anne Marie, I'm going to get it wrong. Could you say your last name and name and address for the record? I can't read it. Galdenzi?
Hi, everyone. Anne Marie Galdenzi,
Okay.
1330 Enfield Street. This past weekend, you know, we all got a lot of rain. In the last day or two, we got a lot of rain, so I drove over to Post Office Road just to see it all myself. And the brook was overflowing in its banks, and you could see the water peeking through the grassy areas. The water appeared to be about 25 feet north of the big stump laying down on the ground. Then I drove over to Oliver Road near house number 33. Used to be the Begley's house. I assume they still live there. And next to the culvert there, you could see the water had come up and come onto his grass of that house. And the water upstream clearly affects the properties downstream. I thought there was supposed to be some type of water management report with calculations, but I didn't see anything in the master packet. But I just wanted to bring it to your attention that I drove over there and I did see all that, and how it could really affect the properties around it if it's not taken care of properly.
Okay,
Thank you
very much. Next is Karen Cambridge. Welcome.
Hi,
Hi.
Karen Camage, 40 Fairfield Road. I was here at your last meeting and brought up my concerns with the impacts to the wetlands on Lot 1 that everyone else is bringing up tonight. And I'm just anxious to hear how your site visit went, and if you share my concerns that there are wetlands on Lot 1 and that there needs to be the proper mitigation put in place so that you don't impact those wetlands. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anybody else that wants to speak for or against? Anybody else want to speak for or against? Okay, one last time. Anybody want to speak for or against? Okay, we'll continue on. We can have the applicant come forward, or if they're here. I remember to give this to Georgie. Hi, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For the record, I'm Reinhard von Hollander, the applicant, Winbrook Homes, and I have with me Mr. Roy Meggie, a licensed professional engineer and land surveyor. And I just wanted to do the handout to you, which is similar to what we encountered at the walk on the 21st at approximately 5 o'clock. These pictures are taken yesterday, okay? They're taken yesterday after we had, our site visit was on April 21st. Since April 22nd, we've had 5 inches of rain. 5 inches of rain, okay? And if we can start, I'll walk everybody through what we walked, again, if you don't mind, at the walk. We all convened. We heard the rules as indicated, roll call, site walk procedures, and then we had the walk. Of which we measured out from, we started at the property line, on the abutters property line of 94 and 92, and we walked off 36 feet to the location of which the house will be placed. That places our house 36 feet from the property line and approximately 70 feet from the abutters. Okay, I have a plot plan of the abutters plot when they submitted their information for their building permit that was approved. So their house sits approximately 48 feet from the property line. So we're another 36 feet. So in total, we're well over 80 feet separation, okay? And we're 36 feet from the property line. They're 48. They show a gravel drive on their plot plan, but we all know it's not because we can see it in the pictures, okay? The plot plan originally showed a gravel drive. So we can also see from this picture, the first picture, that when you're standing on the lot, I'm about 5'10" and a half, that we can see that the abutter's property is graded significantly up from the lot from 92 Post Office. Second picture is more of a close-up to show the drainage area, which is the area that's not mowed, which you could see the brown in, okay? And that comes directly off the impervious surface of the abutter. Then looking towards the southeast, after 5 inches in that area that we talked about and we stood at, that, you know, was an area supposedly that the water collected. After 5 inches, you can barely see it, you know, collected there at all, okay? Then again, turned around and looked straight up the swale towards, so this would be in the north direction, and you can see the mowed area and then our area, vegetated area. Again, no water. Then at that point, from where I took that picture, I then rotated to the northeast, took a picture of the difference of the grade between 94 and 92, and we can see that there's a significant grade difference between 94 and 92. Then I took another picture farther to the east with more of an east direction, and we can see that there's even more grade coming towards both off of 94 and onto 92. And I understand that's permissible. I'm just creating a baseline of things that we observed when we were out there. Again, the rear yard with the drainage coming towards, then turned around completely, facing towards the end of the, so it's a south, more of a little bit of a southeast, south direction towards the end of the property after 5 inches of rain. After 5 inches of rain. There's no water to be seen. Again, the area that we congregated around, where the first flag, that whole area there. Again, the area that was supposedly the area that we deemed to be somewhat underwater. After 5 inches, nothing.
There's water.
There's some water.
There's water.
There's some water.
Yeah, continue.
Okay, it's on my property. It's on my property. The water's on my property at that point. Then again, coming back and facing for a longer shot back towards that area, from the edge of property at the property line all the way down to the back, to the south. And then the last picture is to show the almost on the street elevation with the public hearing sign in place, just for a reference point, and then facing the east. Okay. So I just wanted to go over that for the record. I don't know if Mr. Meggie has anything to offer.
Well,
I'm sure he does.
I mean, the speakers are correct. Water don't normally travel uphill. Right along that easterly line, 94 Post Office Road is at elevation 120 or 121. And our 92 Post Office Road, the elevation will be 119. So obviously, the water from the abutter will flow onto 92 Post Office Road. It's clearly shown in the prints. I went to the property yesterday because we had over 2 inches of rain over the weekend. So I went there just to take a second look on the property to see how it's draining, especially the area where this house is going. And it was dry. There was no water. There was water over next to the north, the other property, but there was no water within the upland section of 92 Post Office Road. So I'm confident with the design that we prepared. The soil is well drained at the front. Obviously, there's wetland in the back. There's no dispute. It's shown on the drawing. So I'm confident with the design. We have addressed all the concerns the town review team highlighted, and if they have any other concerns or comments, we'll address them from the town. And that's all I have to offer this minute.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Eric Davidson's on, I believe, and I think he can maybe speak to. Hi, Eric. How are you? You can speak. You can speak to the. There was some discussion about wetlands flagging. That was even brought up at the last meeting.
Yeah, I know I covered this at the wetlands hearing, and we talked about this at length. Sorry, I'm hearing an echo, and just gonna. There's something I can do to turn that off. Can you hear me okay? It's not muted on my end. Can you hear me? Yeah. I heard the discussion again today from one of the neighbors. I'm not really sure what else to say about the incomplete wetland flagging. We have wetland flagging that was done recently. It runs from property end to property end. It has no relevance. The old flagging by the other soil scientists has no relevance here. And in fact, you heard from your own town staff that my wetland line is higher up the slope. In other words, more conservative and showing more wetlands than what was flagged previously. So, I mean, you can hear testimony over and over again at every hearing if you like that the wetland flagging is not complete, but it is complete. Then, you know, there was one of the speakers asked for wetland flagging on adjacent parcels. That would be a special request from the town. If that's something you need done, we can certainly do it. It wouldn't be typical, and most of the cases that occurs is when there are no wetlands on the property and a town is trying to determine whether they have regulated activities on a parcel based on no wetlands on the property and wetlands on the adjacent parcel. In this case, you've got a trigger, you've got regulated activity. Based on the old mapping of the delineation limits, those wetlands then trail off at a further distance. In other words, the wetlands that we flagged on the property are the closest wetlands to the activity. So I'm just not sure what flagging those other wetlands would add in terms of your understanding of the location and limits of the wetlands. You could simply just look at that old map and get an understanding of the limits of the wetland, and you can see that it travels up from the south up to the northwest, and you can see the wetland limits. If you look at an air photo between Oliver Road and Post Office Road, you can see the extent of this wetland. It's fairly obvious. I think I would just circle back in terms of impacts. We did have a discussion with some of the neighbors in the hallway at the last hearing, and talked about doing an infiltration gallery. If that provides some level of comfort, that certainly would help get some of the water back into the ground, and you could discharge it on the opposite side of the house from the neighbor who has the concerns. But, you know, again, as I said at the last hearing, we didn't feel with the soil types and the limited disturbance that was necessary, but it's certainly something you could add. Obviously, we know the soils at the rear of the property to the south are poorly drained and they are wet, but up around the house site, those soils are well drained and infiltrate well. They're sandy soils, so you could simply put an infiltration gallery in the ground and capture that runoff. I think I would just sum up by saying, you know, I think look at the big picture here. you've got no grading and activity within 50 feet of the wetlands, and ultimately the house will be almost 100 feet from the wetlands, and the driveway where you park cars and potentially produce car-related pollutants will be over 100 feet from the wetlands. So, I mean, I would just say as a commission, think about what you're being asked to do here. To potentially deny a single residential house that ultimately will be almost 100 feet from the wetlands, I would just caution you against precedent that sets based on no evidence that this is going to impact the wetlands. Clearly, that wetland system receives a lot of water, and there's flooding in that wetland, which is what wetlands do. But some of the adjacent homeowners have yard and cleared area that is inside the wetlands. So of course you're going to look out in your backyard and see flooding because you've tried to convert some of that wetland into backyard. So that's pretty much all I have to say, but I can happily answer any questions you might have.
Hi, so we listened, Eric Davison, Roy Meggie, and myself listened to Michelle Menard and Lori Longy last week, or excuse me, 2 weeks ago after the public hearing. And they both were concerned, and they asked if there was a way that we could take the downspouts on the east side of the house and put them into a dry well into this very well drained soils. Dry wells, 7 wide, 7 deep, 7 long, filled with stone filter fabric with an invert that allows it to drain. And that's what we did. We proposed, we came up with this design. It was Mr. Meggie. I had it last week at the meeting. It didn't, at the walk. It didn't come up at that point, alternate solutions. It wasn't part of what anybody asked. So we have a plan that we would be willing to condition. The dry well that would pick up the gutters, the rain leaders, if you will, the gutters, pipe them underground in solid pipe into the dry well, and then dissipate that out through the porous soils that Mr. Davidson spoke about 2 weeks ago, and then again today. And then the red lines indicate the swale line of how it would propose to break, if you will, the water, anything that would shed, if you will, off of the 36 feet to the property line would then, as we discussed on the site visit, clearly when we stood there, would go to the front as proposed from those contours, and then the back from the 119, and then all of a sudden gradually works its way all the way to the back to the 115 line. And we can see from the grade lines, the existing grade lines, that is a natural swale. So we think we've come up with an alternate that the abutter has asked for, and that this satisfies what we heard them, one of their biggest concerns. Be happy to answer any questions. I'm sorry?
We're just looking at the drawing.
So it looks like what we've called the natural swale on the left side of the property here. I guess the south. Yeah, the red line. You're kind of relying more on the kind of the natural grade and the proposed grade here. Is there a way that you could more engineer the swale a little bit and make it more defined and more effective than kind of relying on that? Because I see the 119 line does this weird jog near the sidewalk, and it's just a little wonky. Can you kind of engineer that so it actually acts as maybe a better swale?
Yeah. So looking at the contours, the proposed contours, most of the front is sloping directly towards the road. So maybe as I forgot the engineer's name that stopped by the property last week, that the clients, the abutters, pardon me? Board, right. As he mentioned, probably just a couple spot elevation, because the reason why that wasn't shown is because those elevation would have been 118.5, 118.7 to show the actual pitching towards the roadway. So we could actually put those spot grades on it, spot elevations.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would help to, because just
Define it,
looking at
right.
this, it doesn't look like a defined swale.
Right, and contours can be a little bit tricky
Exactly.
to read, but
Excuse
yes,
me.
a couple spot elevations there would. There's no need to pipe it. to be
Excuse me?
honest.
Commissioner Zorda, there was a mention at the last meeting where the applicant stated they'd be okay with a site-specific condition of like an enhanced swale or a rain garden of some kind. It's not on my April 18th staff report, but after hearing the public comments and the concerns and what we've received and looked at, I would like to recommend that could be a site-specific condition that you could take into consideration.
Yeah, that's kind of the direction I'm going. That's why I asked you if you could do that, do a more engineered swale, rain garden, or, especially along that swale. It's a great opportunity there. And then, of course, I mean, we know it's wetlands. It's undeniable that there's wetlands back there, but it goes all the way across. So, but I think this is the area where I'm most concerned of right now, is this side where, we want to make sure that we're staying with the stipulated judgment, that it's not, no water's going that way, for sure. And that, I think, would go a long way.
Well, I have a concern. Is there any way to direct it all towards the front? So we're not going into the wetlands with it? Because we're not supposed to drain into our wetlands.
Well, currently it's already existing there, and if they do that, then they'd be impacting the actual wetland soils back there, causing more of a disturbance. So what's draining there is going to continue to drain there, but if they improve their drainage in the front and the middle of the site, then it would actually be better for the wetlands on site in the back. It's a complicated site. The wetlands are clearly high functioning towards the end of the site. I do want to reiterate that we did already address the concerns of the drainage rights for lots 3, 4, and 5, and 6 onto lots 1, 2, and 7. And there is a note on the site plan about the FEMA survey of the FEMA floodplain. And of course, like, our town does not regulate the zone X, the 500-year flood zone. We only regulate the 100-year flood zone. And the assistant town engineer's concerns were about that flood zone and if they could move the house out of the flood zone, which they have complied with. So all the comments from our inner departments have been satisfied.
I have a little bit of a concern on Lot 1. That's supposedly pristine wetlands, and you're going to be putting more water into there. Is there any way you can lessen the impact of the water over there?
You even have your sump pump going that way.
I know the lot is hard, and I'm glad that you're working on, helping out with the neighbors' issues, but nobody except Ms. Kamich has mentioned about Lot 1.
I'd like to point out that We're 78 feet from our property line to the west.
That is correct. I have a scale to confirm that. It is significantly far.
78 feet, and Mr. Davison didn't show any wetlands even on that, in that area at all.
That's all wetlands. That's all wetlands. Anybody to my right have any questions, comments, discussion?
Excuse me, Madam Chair. Also in a stipulated judgment that they are allowed to drain onto Lot 1 as well. That was also mentioned by a public member at the last meeting too. They can drain onto lots, the town lots, 1 and 2 and 7. They just can't drain onto the privately owned lots.
Can you tie the sump pump into the dry well? Is that?
Absolutely. We don't have a problem with that at all.
That could
To answer
be,
your question more, if you would like to condition this, we could absolutely give you a more pronounced swale, if you will. Okay?
Yeah, but
So even if
you don't want to disturb that wetland area.
well, so we could get to the wetlands edge and move everything forward from there, okay? And then at the point of the wetlands, so that arc that's there, you can see right at the 119 box.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So
Yeah.
everything forward from there, as we indicate, can go from there. That's where the break point is. We could make that more pronounced flowing towards the street.
Well, that's,
That would,
so
that would
this
satisfy.
this is the 100-foot
Yeah.
upland
Right.
area. So it could go to the wetlands. So you're not disturbing the wetlands, you're actually improving, right?
yeah, they could potentially improve the drainage of the lot, including
Right. So
the drainage.
you could go beyond where that, right to the wetlands, not just stop at where you have the break is at the 100-foot
Right up to the wetlands edge is
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
And we would be amenable to that.
and bringing that forward.
Through a condition, we would definitely do that.
I mean, I just want to reiterate that this soil is well drained. We had over 2 inches of rain over the weekend, and yesterday I went there. This section, the upland area, was literally dry. There was no sitting water there. So
I think it would be a small concession that would help to eliminate any potential issues
Right,
and
right.
concerns.
okay. Sure.
Comments, questions, concerns? Go ahead,
I'm sorry, I have a ton of comments, questions, and concerns.
Go ahead.
I was there most of Sunday afternoon to watch the rain come down. There literally is no upland area on the west side. That is all the drainage channels, the tussocky mounds of vegetation. I'm intrigued by the idea that your site has better draining soil, because the soil that I walked on Sunday and just about an hour ago, I'm covered with ticks, is still very fine and not draining even now. So is it possible that the soil that you have underneath your site is the fine Windsor loam that was plowed up, or is better quality, or drains better? Because what happens in the wetlands area is the fines filter in, and there's very clear channels. There's humps of vegetation. I just walked through there. It's a mess. It's right up to the back of the 119. It's right up to the back of your mulch pile.
I think Mr. Erickson spoke to that 2 weeks ago. He could speak to it again, to the soils and the capacity to drain there.
That possibly right under the house site, the soils are better drained. But clearly, all around the back where there's vegetation, they're full of fines and they're not so well drained. There also is that issue is there is no upland area really between your site. I just walked through there this afternoon. just before coming here, there's really no upland soils until you get to where the mulch piles are, where the tree was taken down. That soil does look well drained, but there's wetlands right up into your property that are actually have inches of water in them. So I don't know how we can protect the wetlands, and those are high-functioning wetlands. And you've moved over as much as you can.
Eric, could you speak to that? Because you obviously have much more, you were all over this site, so.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the question is. I think the area you were describing is west of this lot. Is that where lot 1 is?
Yes.
Yeah, the other side.
Yes.
It's my understanding based on the old survey map that showed a delineated wetland on that parcel that much of that lot is wet. So, I mean, when you were describing wet conditions, were you looking in a wetland? And again, I mean, we had 2 inches of rain on Sunday. I mean, you know, moderately well-drained soils are flooded in a 2-inch rainstorm over that short period, so.
But this clearly has channels, it has tussocky vegetation. There's a
Inside the
lot of
wetland, or?
It's all wetlands as you walk in.
So I'm a little
There's no real upland beside the west side of your property.
Could you
On
describe?
lot 1.
Are you talking about lot 1?
Yes.
And slightly onto your property,
Could you point out approximately what contour line that might be?
119. There's no decent soil below 119. You've got a lot of fines in there, you've got the typical vegetation. It's hard to walk through there. It's nothing like your property where the ground feels well drained. It's been grubbed out nicely. It does look like the Windsor fine sandy loam. So I know this is difficult, but there's a big difference between your site and even there's the pond that comes from where the road has wetlands on both sides. And I know we aren't allowed to do the fill and improve, but it seems like your site has better soil, or possibly it's been amended with the mulch that was worked into it. Because the minute you get away from that, you step into that fine, sandy, silty, saturated stuff, which is the wetlands up on your property. So you would have to do an awful lot to protect that western edge of your property, which would make it difficult to do the excavation work. And then even if you could get all your water to go to the back to below 119, the minute you step out past there's 5 wetlands flags that you can see. Even before you cross those, you're in that tussocky soil, you can see the drainage channels. It's
Excuse
almost
me,
like you need a
Commissioner
perfect little
Collins?
sand pile to do your house on, and you're going to be surrounded, and anything below 119 is going to revert back to that siltier soil and the vegetation, and I don't know how the town feels about that back area, but that's the part of the wetlands that we have to consider is opening up into that broad floodplain that goes to the pond, that goes to Beeman's Brook.
Yep.
Short of a plan, I mean, you could almost use a retaining wall or anything to get the water to go to the front.
Excuse me, I do want to point out that they have a limit of disturbance, and right now they're not proposing any disturbance after the tree line on the site plan. So if they do something over there, they would be disturbing those existing soils and the existing pattern over
How
there.
can you get the shrubs out of that area to build the house without having to pull them out?
You can see the line, the edge of the woods line?
Yes.
That sort of hatched line there? That's, we don't plan on going any farther than what is existing there.
I'm reasonably certain from walking through there this afternoon that you would have to stay at the 119 contour to not be at the 118, which is in the 117, and have to grub out those shrubs.
And you are correct. It's the contour back there is 119. and it will be 119.
But you have the 118 before the shrub line. You're going to have to grub out the shrubs to work
We
in the
won't be going back
118.
there.
So are you talking about the west to the
Yes,
west?
the west. The west is my area of concern.
Because those are pristine wetlands, as we've heard multiple times.
Eric, could you speak to that again? Because I know Lot 1 has wetlands on it, but I'm not convinced that you found wetlands on the 78 feet of area between Lot 1 and Lot 2 to the west that was considered wetlands types. Could you speak to that?
I'm sorry, I'm struggling to find a question here. The wetlands that are shown on the map, or the parcel that is in front of you, 92, are the wetlands on that property. Are there wetlands to the west on Lot 1? I don't know. I did not flag off of the parcel that is part of the application. There's an old map that shows a wetland boundary there that I think you could use as a reference.
We can't use that as a reference because the soils were disturbed and the waterways were disturbed after that was done. So that's what the whole lawsuit was, because the town disturbed all those properties and redirected the water, redirected everything. So that's the problem that we're dealing with here. The old
I
maps
cannot
and things,
speak-
the old maps and that are not valid anymore.
I
So
cannot speak to wetlands on another property.
There is
my
no-
suggestion is going to be that we hire a soil scientist to come out and look at both lots.
So there's one problem with that I'm going to point out.
There is no problem with that
There is
because we have a right.
Let me explain, please. There's one problem, and it's because it's town-owned property, so you would
So the
need
town can do it.
Let me finish. Thank you. You need permission from the town to go onto their property, and that requires probably asking permission from town council. Not to mention that we have had other applications where we've never required this for the development of a single-family home, regardless of the history. The applicant has demonstrated.
Excuse me, stop. I am requesting, and if everybody votes for it, we
And that's fine.
we
You can
want a soil
request it.
scientist to come in and look at both properties.
You can do that. I'm just
And
saying
we
you
can
need
do that.
permission.
We have we're looking at a lawsuit that came before this town for 8 years.
I'm saying you can
So
do that.
if we want to
If you
have a
let me
soil scientist
finish.
come in, we can hire a soil scientist to come in and do this.
Just let me finish my
No,
statement,
no,
please.
no, please, no.
Because you
Stop.
can do that as your regulations. You
Yes,
are
we
allowed to
can.
do that. What I'm saying is.
Yes, we can.
You just need permission. That's all I'm saying.
We will get
Once-
permission from the town council if that's what we have to do.
I understand that. And once you get permission, you can do that.
And it's
It
our
is-
regulations that allow us, and state regulations that allow us, as the agents for inland
Yes,
wetlands,
exactly. You are
to allow
correct.
that to happen.
I'm just saying, as your staff person, to lead you in the correct path here, that you can do that, yes, once we get permission, correct? And also, we have to figure out what we have for funds. And I believe, hang on, let me finish. I believe in the regulations, it is on the expense of the applicant.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we need to look at the town side, because even in the litigation, it says the town, that they wanted, everything had to be redone. Even Karen Camage is here. She was an old agent from that time, back when this happened. They said this stuff needs to be redelineated because of the way the waters were redirected, the way everything was done. We're in the Beebens Brook area here. We need to know where that is so we can properly protect it and do what we need to do so we don't impact residents down the street. This is important that we do this right so we don't impact anybody else. So, sorry, that's the way it is.
No, that's why I was saying that you can do that.
That's the way it is. So yes, we can do that. If we decide to do that, we can do that. Ian?
Yep.
That's essentially correct. We do need our own independent soil scientist, like George Logan from REMA would be excellent and familiar with the area. But maybe we could talk about, we do need to do that, but maybe we could talk about proposed ways to protect that little bit of wetlands incursion onto this
Yes.
lot, so we could work out a way that the house plan could go through if we got those wetlands correctly redelineated and treated them as just the shrub, swampy area going into the
What
wetlands.
if they did landscaping along the west side, like better landscaping?
I want to know where the wetlands are. I want to know where the floodplains are. I want to know where the things for Bemis Brook is. I want to know the impact of all that before I can make any decision on this application. If I don't know that, I'm voting no. I want to know the impact and what we're doing to this stuff, the proper way to do this. And if we can't do any of that, then I'm voting no. So if we want to move forward, then we need to
It's not
continue
my
on and
application.
get the information that we need to make the right decision.
I understand. I'm not,
So
I'm
that's-
not arguing with you. I'm just
Yes,
trying
you
to
are.
say that you can do
Yes.
this.
I asked, Ann, did you have other
I think to
things
say-
that you had to say?
I think she does, yes. She had a ton.
I do want to reiterate the functionality of the wetlands and that the town did man-make them when they
Did their
cut that
thing.
ditch. But walking all the way back to the pond and the brook, there's preservable wetlands. But up at the front and on the west, that's the man-made part that flooded. And I think there are ways that you could stay below your 119 on that side and just have conservation-type wetlands. And it's unfortunate you can't get a little bit more clean fill in there to shore that up, because if you go to grub out the shrubbery, that's the shrub type of wetlands in a wet meadow. You're going to be in the finer soils, which you're not going to like.
Okay, so can I?
Yes.
If we put a berm, let's call it a berm, for lack of a better term, on the 119 line, okay, from that 119 back to the 100-foot, okay? If we put an earthen berm there, about 4 feet wide, 3 feet tall, as an area to separate, delineate the wetlands or the no impact area, would that satisfy you, Ann?
I'm not trying to satisfy myself. I'm trying to think of a way for you to have a swale and reestablish the wetlands, wet meadow with the shrub vegetation, so it just flows into the town's wetlands.
What I'm saying is that the 119 line, we would, there's no plan from my perspective to go into the area that's called out as to clear the
Right.
edge of the woods. There's no, we don't plan on going in there. We don't need to go in there. There's no reason to go in there.
Is that enough room for your side yard for you to work in and?
Well, it's 78 feet. If I look at my scale here, it's about 20-foot scale. We're about 40 feet to the, 38 feet, 35 feet to where the edge of the wood is at this point.
No, it's
got the
it's
stockpile there.
less
She's
than that.
talking
If
to-
the 78-foot is divided into thirds, you've got
Right.
20 feet to the 119. Would that be enough room for you to work in?
Absolutely. We need 10 feet wide for a dozer blade.
And the stockpile could be in the,
Your stockpile would be a problem, too.
You could
No, you
move the
could move that.
stockpile. Simply move the stockpile.
We should go out and correctly measure exactly from where the corner of your house is situated to when you start to walk into the 119 area. There's actually some water in and around the 119 contour, and decide if you have enough room to. Your pictures are more on the east side where it looks better, because it's been manicured a little bit more.
They're only on the east side because we walked the entire side. He walked independent, Mr. Meggie walked independently of me. I was out there literally 20 minutes before him taking these pictures, and he just coincidentally told me yesterday or today that he went out there, and he was out there at about 6:15, 6:17. I was already had come and gone. So we didn't see any impact at all in the west area. I parked where I parked the last time we parked when we did our site visit, which is the west area. Okay, where there's a curb cut, and I drove onto that and parked there and stayed there and then walked in.
Can you show me where that curb cut is? Because I walked in there too. That's how I got in this afternoon. It's like that old, it's
Curb
that.
cut is actually in front of Lot 1.
Is that, how many feet into Lot 1 is that, a curb cut? Because that's how I entered the property this afternoon.
Okay, so you came on the curb cut and then drove onto the property?
and I moved a little bit to the east as I walked in to avoid being actually in pretty much open water. So I probably moved 10 feet to the east of that curb cut, and then I picked my way through back to where I could see your mulch piles and crossed several streams that are not intermittent streams. They're permanent drainage in there as a result of that flooding. So if I knew where that curb cut was, I could calculate my exact path. And even right in the back of where the tree is taken down in the mulch piles, I was in that typical wet meadows, shrub vegetation, which that's permanent. That's fine material that has it has the Bradford pear trees in it. It has the multiflora rose that I cut my hand on. It has the bittersweet. All those things that's typical of where you get out of the nice soil that you have your plan on, which must be the Urident soil that's been reworked. So can you show me where that curb cut is?
That curb cut's off the, it's off the
It's not on
plan.
his property.
It's not on my property, it's off the plan, it's on Lot 1.
By how many feet?
I can't tell you. I can tell you that the only way I can reference anything is up by, and I stay away from the drainage structures.
Because I locate myself by the sewer manhole, and that's very close to that curb cut.
So
It's the sewer cover in the street.
Yeah, that doesn't show a curb cut there. We would show a curb cut if there was one.
So it must be down some number.
It's in front of Lot 1.
I think we just need some test pits done here, just to.
You could also require bonds, like restoration bonds or erosion sediment control bonds. 19.6 talks about your consultant. It states, as a condition of any permit, the agency may require that the applicant engage and pay for an independent consultant to report to the agency the results of project monitoring and/or inspections. The consultant must be pre-approved by the agency, and said consultant shall monitor and/or inspect on a schedule determined by the agency. 19.6a, the consultant shall send written reports on performance on a schedule determined by the agency simultaneously to both the agency and the Office of Planning and Development Services, to the town of Enfield, and to the applicant.
Did you have any more, Ann?
I would go out and measure the distances for you, but I am going to say unequivocally that everything below the 119 that I'm triangulating off the sewer manhole and where I entered is absolutely in water right now. It's going to stay in water. It's a much finer soil, and it has to be treated like wetlands.
Could, Eric Davison, could I bring you back in to answer to that? Because I think we're, again,
I think we could just move on.
Yeah.
Please move on. Yeah, did you have anything else, Ann?
I'd be glad to go out with you and, you know.
No, you can't do that. You can't do that. Okay. Anything else?
And measure the distances from where I
Yeah, you
entered.
can't,
to-
yeah.
can't do that.
You can't do that.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob? Jenny? Go ahead.
One thing on the application, when it says, is any portion of the project located within a watershed area? You checked off no. Is that correct?
It's not correct.
That refers to the public watershed areas. Those are the aquifer areas.
Okay.
Those aren't like the normal watersheds.
It's in the Beaman's Brook watershed area.
Yeah. Technically, everything's watershed, right?
That is true. Everything is a watershed, but aquifers are different.
Well, there's a separate line for aquifer.
Yeah, there is a separate line for water.
Yeah.
So I do have some of it was already discussed here. Yeah, I need to know where the wetlands end, where the upland review area is. I need to know that right side, that property, the flood zones and all that. The sump pump, we talked about that, but it shouldn't drain into the floodplains or the wetlands or that side of it, regulated area. So if you could pump it into your,
we could absolutely move it to
To
the
the-
opposite side of the
That'd be
lower level
fine.
and pump into the,
yeah, so
there.
that'd be great. I didn't see any stormwater analysis in the impact report for that would affect the downstream into the Beaman's Brook watershed area. And this is part of our regulations because you are in that area. So we should have something on the impact downstream to the Beaman's Brook and to the residents downstream, where that's going to be. And that is part of our regulations. When we did the site walk, we did notice, a few of us, across the street, there is the wetlands plants and that. That's where the gas lines are, that's where the hookups are for sewers or whatever. So I don't see any permits on here for that. Who does them? When do they apply for them? Because that is wetlands, they're going to need permits for that. When we walked the property, I, pushed the leaves around and stuff, and as I was walking on purpose, and there was water while we were walking through. And so it is wet back there on your property. And there was muddy soils, and that was 5 days after the rain had stopped. So I know, Ann, I did want to apologize to you. You wanted to see the wetland flags. You wanted us to walk out back and look at them all. You were directed away from it. We were told we didn't need to go see it. It wasn't necessary. I apologize we didn't do that. I should have insisted that we did that for you because you did request it. So I apologize for that. We should have gone and seen them. So some of the...
Excuse me, Chairwoman, is
Yes.
it too late to go do that? Is that something that can be done?
We can do another
versus-
cycle if we want to, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. What else? So some of the other conditions I would have is we do this swale and drainage area, that we need to have it listed on the site plans. We need to have a maintenance plan for it, so we preserve that forever, so it doesn't fill up or get crazy or anything. So we need maintenance plans. You did talk about the roof and the runoff from there going into your new setup, so that's good. The right side of the property, we should have no grading or plant vegetation removal. We should leave it as a natural habitat because that is a floodplain area. And that should be a condition that nothing happens over there. It has to stay. And keep the natural flow and the trees and the vegetation there. I think we need to have somewhere that we need to inform the homeowners and any future homeowners or anybody else that they cannot, I took actually from the prior conditions for this when Karen Camage was on the board. There's no disposing of leaves, brush, grass clippings, tree cutting, or other lawn refuse. Grading, filing, or other modifications shall be made to the portion of the lot within 25 feet of the wetlands and floodplain, and including the swale, drainage, ditch catch basins. That was listed on the last.
Put it as a condition on the
And we need to put it as a condition, and it should be on a deed and site plans and everywhere else. And we have to let the homeowners know, because if nobody tells them, how are they going to know? I mean, I have woods behind me, we put grass cuttings, but I don't have wetlands, so, you think you can do it, but they may not be able to know that. The lot is in the floodplain and upper reaches of the Beaman's Brook watershed and is critical for flood storage to protect downstream residential areas. We also have to have a note on that these areas need to be preserved. There can be no cutting, nothing back there. They have to keep them.
maybe a sign.
Maybe a sign, I don't know, something. The site plans, they show the new elevation. So when we did our walk, we were looking at what it currently is and needed to think that this house was going to be 3 feet higher than that. So the slope was going to be different. So when the house gets built, there's going to be more of a slope and elevations than that. They did say in the flood zone note on the plans that it was effective they used it from a map from 2008. I believe that was before the lawsuit, before the town redirected water and the brooks and everything else, so I'm not sure how accurate that is. And Georgie mentioned, and the survey notes mentioned, that's A2, V2, T2 accuracy, which are supposedly very good accurate. But we have the flood zone as approximate. So I don't know how
I
you
can
have
speak to
something-
that actually because of why it's approximate. FEMA.gov is where our applicants get their topography and their FEMA flood zones. Although not every area of the flood zones were identified by FEMA.gov. They would have to go through FEMA, who would have to do a whole bunch of mapping and process to figure out the topography of that area. And
Well, then that brings me to my next statement. I said we received 4 different site plans over the time. From the DPN up until last week, now we got 5. I did know, I said, what is the difference? So I went through and I looked. And the difference is the house was sitting in a flood zone. The back right corner of the house was in a flood zone. Now it's not. So somebody moved the flood zone.
It's approximation from
Well,
what
I
our
mean,
assistant
it
town
was in the
engineer
flood zone.
suggested.
Now it's not in the flood
Because
zone.
there's no defined topography line on
And the
FEMA.
distance from the 78 feet, 78 feet. So somebody moved the flood zone.
It's a governing body. FEMA needs to identify the
Well,
topography.
then we
We
need
don't
to know.
regulate the 500 a year.
So, I'm sorry, but that's what I noticed. That's what I see is different. Page one, the first one we got, it was sitting, the back corner is in a flood zone. The sump pump is in a flood zone.
We
And now
addressed
it's
this
moved.
from the engineering
I'm just
comments.
stating what I noticed.
Okay.
Karen came, she spoke that these are pristine wetlands to the right. It's no longer buildable. So again, the site plan shows the house is 78 feet away from that property line. Where do those wetlands end? The right lot is pristine wetlands. That's, we protect up to 100 feet as our upland review area, so where are those wetlands to that right side? We need to know that, which is why we need to have somebody else come in and redelineate. Our regulations also say you have to be within 200 feet of the Connecticut River, the Beemans Brook, and that. We're in the Beemans Brook watershed area. We need to protect that, and we need to make sure we do for the downstream systems. And we were directed away from going and looking at the right side because we started to walk towards it and were called back and said, no, we didn't need to go look at that, which I'm sorry that we didn't go look at it because that's important wetlands, and we should have looked at it. So those are my comments for now. And if anybody else has any comments? Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak again? Mr. Longi?
Thank you.
Thank you.
David Longi, 1427 Enfield Street. They talk a lot about sandy soils, well-drained soils, but no matter what the soil is, if it's saturated, it's not draining. Another thing they're not considering is, they say, oh, it's going to drain, but I've never seen soils drain in the winter when they're frozen. And you make reference to the McCricky map from '06. That map was really done in '98 with some revisions that were minor revisions that were done in 2006. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lori Longi, 1427 Enfield Street. I just want to thank Ann. I was standing in that same water. Honestly, I walked 15 feet over. I was 10 feet from the property line, and my boots were filled with water. That was on Sunday. And I put it in the pictures because nobody realizes that that whole area floods. That's where the water is, and it's under the grass line. And unless you're walking in it, you don't see it. That's why I know that they're pristine wetlands, high-value wetlands, and that area had not been flagged, should be flagged. Those maps were done in 1998 before all of this water came there. That's why it's really important to have that side of the property flagged. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle Menard, 94 Post Office Road. I haven't seen the possible revised plans or the conditions. It sounds like it may be addressing some of these things, so that makes me feel a little positive. I do want to say, after a storm, yes, the site location is dry. During a storm, in that low spot, there's 3 or 4 inches of water just pooled there. and then it runs off. Very quickly after the storm, it's either all run off into the wetlands or it's drained. But given the volume of water already there, it's not draining quick enough in these storms. Adding additional water into there is not going to drain. And then I did want to point out, yes, my elevation is very different than the existing elevation, but the proposed elevation is very similar to my existing elevation. So you're going to be looking at very similar conditions coming from both sides of that property line. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, okay, yeah.
Karen Camage, 40 Fairfield Road. I also wanted to thank you for listening to our concerns and hopefully getting the Lot 1 flagged so you know what wetlands are there and what needs to be protected. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else want to speak? No. Did the applicants have any response to?
Reinhard Blonholder again for the record. I don't think we're disputing, none of our people that have spoken, Eric Davison, Roy Maggie, are disputing that Lot 1 has wetlands. We're not disputing that. We're way away. We're 78 feet away from the boundary on Lot 1. We've satisfied engineering staff's comments in town. We've satisfied the planning comments in town. We've addressed all the inland wetlands issues in town. We flagged the site as we are charged with doing. That is the limit of the wetlands on this property. We showed the 100-foot buffer. We are working outside of the 100-foot buffer. We have minimal disturbance. It was actually stated on the walk multiple times within the record that the impact is low or not at all. Mr. Zorda referenced that several times in the public hearing on site. And we had the opportunity at that meeting to walk all over this site. We had the opportunity to walk all over that site. If there was concerns, they should have been raised then, in fairness to me as an applicant. I've spent a lot of time and a lot of resources with my specialty, with Mr. Davison, with Mr. Meggie, countless revisions to the plan, and that shows a willingness to better the plan. Okay, we've had 5 or 6 revisions. The one I gave you was possibly number 7. It satisfied the abutters. We can easily tie in the footing drain to the dry well. The notion that we're going to flag the wetlands on Lot 1 and that's going to give us a better idea of how that might impact this lot, I don't know that's relevant. We've got a very clear line at 119 that we're not going to go beyond, and we've showed a willingness to put that in as a condition and to protect that area that we don't really know even where it exists. We're taking, hearsay, if you will, from people that are going onto the lot without me knowing, by the way, and making then comments about the condition of the property, where we've had our specialists that have gone out there and have flagged the wetlands. We've drawn the boundary. We've graded. We've showed a willingness to increase our grading, to put a dry well in,
Yep, thank you very much.
to modify and put the dry well into the sump pump into the dry well.
Thank you.
I just want you to, the gravity of I'm a little bit taken aback by the fact that we didn't take care of these issues or deal with these issues on the site walk. And now that they're coming up.
Okay, so a site walk is to just go and look. We don't ask questions, we don't have back and forth, we just go observe. We come back to this meeting, and then we discuss it.
Right,
So we couldn't have discussed it while we were sitting on the site walk. So that's the way our site walk works, those are the rules, regulations, that's what we followed. We
Okay.
walked the site walk, we looked at what we could see, and we come back here and we discuss it in this meeting. And that's exactly what we're doing. So I'm sorry if, you thought we should have done something differently, but that's the way they work. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, Madam Chair, I'm just going to make a couple comments.
Sure.
So I'm glad to see the latest revision with the dry well and the, the enhancement of the swale between the property. I think that's definitely important. I think that's, again, showing a willingness with the applicant to kind of work with the conditions. That being said, I think I do realize the importance of the issue you mentioned with the neighboring property to the northwest. That we are potentially missing information without having that delineated. Again, the house is 78 feet away, but theoretically, if the wetlands go up to the property line, that would extend
Thank you.
our regulated area.
Thank
So
you.
I think that is something we should explore. Again, if anything, just to confirm that it's not a regulated area. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I concur.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know you were looking at it. Yes, I agree.
Anybody else have any comments? So at this point, we cannot close the public hearing if we decide to have a soil scientist come in. We'll have to continue the public hearing.
Yeah. I think Phil summed it up well, that we don't know where the wetlands stop on Lot 1. And the house is 76, so in theory, if there's no wetlands on the property line, he's good to go. If not, then we might have some concerns, but we won't know until we have somebody look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this map is pre,
Yeah.
so-
Pre-everything.
right, and this old map, I'm not even sure who presented it to us, but it does indicate that the wetlands could potentially, if they have shifted, it could be in that. So I think some delineation over here would be appropriate.
So I guess it'd make a motion to,
So I'll go ahead and make a motion to continue the public hearing for IW 677, 92 Post Office Road, application for the development of a single-family home, Winbrook Homes LLC, owner applicant, map 47, lot 10, R44 zone, with the stipulation that the agency requests delineation of the adjacent property.
Second. Do we need an extension? Time?
the next meeting is, we would have to close the public hearing. So if we can't have somebody come and do this delineation for us by next meeting, we would have to get a extension.
So that's the other thing, is that in our regulations, you have to state and agree on a consultant. They must be pre-approved by the agency. The other thing is, we've never done this before yet. The only thing we have to go by is section 19.6. If you look in your regulations really quickly, that is, from what I found, is the only part in our regs that reference consultants, and it states as a condition of any permit. So I'm not really sure how exactly we're going to do this before our deadline on May 16th.
It should be in the state.
Yeah, it is. It's in the regulations. We've been told many times we could do it.
No, I'm not saying
worried about
that.
it.
I'm saying that,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, so,
you have to agree on a soil scientist.
right. So I'm thinking we're going to have to extend it, though, because there's no way we could by the 16th. I doubt. So we have a motion to continue and to have,
Second.
and a second by Ginny to have, continue the hearing and get somebody to come in and redelineate.
You have to agree on a consultant first.
thought the consultant was part of, oh, we have to.
You have to pick one. You have to pick someone.
Well, you're going to have to give us a list.
I don't have a list. Like either use Davison Environmental, like Ann said, REMA Ecological Services.
Is there someone in J.R. Russo that's a soil scientist?
No, there's the certified list of soil scientists on the New England Registry that you can look at. I can pull it up right now.
Find somebody local.
Do we want to, just for the sake of scheduling, maybe pre-approve like 3 different names, just in
Yes.
case availability, they can't do it?
Yeah. Sounds like a good idea. Do you know
Okay.
anybody?
Give me 1 second.
Is there any reason not to approve anybody on that list?
I know. We would approve
No,
anybody
not
on the
necessarily,
list.
no.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what-
Can't we just,
If somebody off the list.
yeah.
So I can't pick for you, though. You have to look at it. The other thing
She
is
just said
that
George Logan is one.
But where is he? Is he in this area?
there's just
Yes?
one
Okay.
thing I want to point out, because George came to our last meeting, and remember, we talked about 38 Post Office. He mentioned he couldn't finish the delineation because he's
Oh,
backed
the
up.
one.
Yes,
Yeah.
so that's our other problem. We just have to
put him on
take
the
into
list.
consideration time. The applicant can request extensions for any time period that only total up to 65 days. So it's an extension of 2 requests, one for 30 days, one for 35, but the applicant has to request it.
Do we have any that are in the area? You know, that
They're
instead
not
of-
like area general. They're just
No,
registered.
no, I understand that, but if you've got somebody down in New Haven and we want them to come up here, we might have better luck finding somebody in Bloomfield or in Hartford or South Windsor.
I don't see why we can't take, just say, pick-
Just a thought.
approve the list.
Yeah, the other option that I would throw out there too is, obviously contingent on the permission we need for the town property, but having the soil scientist, Mr. Davidson, I think, who's ever on the line, having him as one of the options
That
as well.
was my other recommendation. You can hire Davison Environmental as your own soil scientist and have him go out on behalf.
We have to pay for it?
No, it's on the applicant's expense. The only thing I'm not sure about, and I'll double check the state statutes, is that one section in our regs that says as a condition of a permit. So I'm not entirely sure how that works. I'm not saying you can't do that. I'm just saying just give me a chance to make sure we're doing it correct.
Yeah, I believe off the top of my head, I think it's like 7.6, maybe 7.6A that talks about it as one of the application requirements.
Yeah. Yes, go ahead.
This was clearly a mistake on Mr. Davison's part that he didn't want to incur onto Lot 1 and delineate there, or he would have found the slight bulge at 117 feet that comes onto your property. So is it possible to just bring him back out and say we need to delineate correctly through your property, through Lot 1, and through that little bulge up at the front, and use the correct markers, because there's only 5 pink wetlands ribbons that say wetlands, and normally you see the blue boundary markers, the orange surveying points, and the pink wetlands have numbers on them, because I'm questioning whether the wetlands, the 5 markers, really should even be at 114.7 feet, and that they should be closer up to the 119. So he would be the logical person to come out and check that now under these wet conditions. And I think he probably would like to remedy the situation and have not omitted looking at the west side, because it's making him look like he only placed 5 markers without doing his blue boundaries and orange.
Just to clarify on that, though, Lot 1 was a neighboring
Chair.
property. He wouldn't have had permission
He's
to
not-
go on that property.
That's not a mistake. He couldn't do that.
But
Yeah,
if he
just
had
to
come
make
up
that clear.
the boundary, he would have seen this slight bulge into Lot 2.
Who else is on the list?
Okay, so you got a couple of options, but I think Mr. Davidson had something he wanted to say first.
Yep, go ahead.
I don't know if it's too late, Madam Chair, to just comment. Again, I did flag everything on Lot 2 or 92, which is the subject parcel. I did not flag on Lot 1. Would I be happy to extend that line all the way up and around across Lot 1, so you would know exactly how that regulated area spills out onto the property. The flags that I put on 92, the subject property, are numbered, and that's shown on the survey. Whether you use blue flagging or pink flagging, the color is irrelevant.
Thank you. Is there a couple more, Karen, I'm sorry. Is there a couple more names on that list?
So the New England Soil Registry website is divided into alphabetized. So obviously people with the last name of A will be first.
There's somebody on there that we have seen in the past.
I have to go through the entire alphabet. There's hundreds of soil scientists. You have private consultants, you have retired soil scientists, you have federal soil scientists, you have self-employed soil scientists. So if you want to call like a 5-minute recess to go over that list, I can give you my computer. But Mr. Davison has offered, you mentioned.
I would like to have a couple names. Soil
Do you want to call a recess? You can look at it. It's alphabetized. I can't just.
Yeah, why don't you go to recess?
I will call a 5-minute recess. It's 8:40. Back in session, it's 8:45. So we did a quick review. We have Mr. Davison we could add to the list. George Logan we could add to a list. North Central Conservation, I guess it's called, is a list. And Dave Askew is another person. And we also we looked at soil science and environmental out of Rocky Hill.
So 5.
So we have 5.
Okay, so I will contact them tomorrow, and I'll see which one has the quickest availability.
Thank you. So we still have a motion on here.
So, yep, motion was made with the amendments to include the 5 pre-approved soil scientists.
And Jenny, you
And I
said?
seconded it.
Yes. Any more discussion? So we can continue? Okay, roll call, please.
Donna Corbin-Savinsky.
Yes.
Kevin Zorda.
Yes.
Virginia Higley, yes. Robert Hendrickson.
Yes.
Ann Collins.
Yes.
Nancy Martin.
Yes.
Phil Kober.
Yes.
7 in favor, motion passes. Okay. So we're now out of the public hearing, and we're back into regular meeting.
Madam Chair, do you want to mention that the public hearing is now continued to
Yeah.
May 16th?
Yeah, it is continued to May 16th, unless, we have to delay it, but. So next is new public hearings, we have none. Old business, the determination of need, and I think that's still tabled to June 6th. New business is 161 Post Office Road, application for re-subdivision, Garrett Homes LLC applicant, Mitchell Wagner, owner, 68, lot 232, BL zone. Hi. Thank you. That's good, yep, that'll be good. Welcome.
Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Robin Pearson. I'm an attorney with the firm of Alford Pearson in Glastonbury, Connecticut, and I'm here this evening on behalf of the applicant, Garrett Homes LLC. I'd like to just let you know who's here with me.
Perfect.
Mr. Eucalito is sitting in right there on behalf of Garrett Homes LLC. Next to me is Mr. Huell, who is our
Robin, can you please speak into the microphone? Thank you.
Oh, I thought she was.
I was, but
The light has to be on.
Oh, there it is.
who is our engineer on the project. And we also have, though he seems to have left the screen, but Eric Davison is also the soil scientist who has mapped the wetlands. There he is on the site. So I'm not expecting you'll have any questions for him, but if he is here in case that you do. So what you have before you this evening is a application for you to take a look at our re-subdivision application for the property at 161 Post Office Road. This is an application to create an additional lot. It is not a wetland review of a development plan on a particular lot. So as you are, I'm sure, aware, pursuant to state statute 8-26C, whenever an application for a subdivision, or in our case, it's actually a re-subdivision, involves or has on the entire parcel land that is regulated as a wetland or a watercourse by state statute, we have to come before you and you decide whether or not creating that lot or lots pursuant to the plan that's proposed creates any significant wetland impacts. We certainly don't think it does, and your staff report that you received is extremely clear. It says that the proposed re-subdivision of this property will not impact or affect the upland review area or wetland locations in any way. And indeed, it's pointed out that the closest pin of the property, of the lot to be created to the wetlands, actually to the upland review area, is 70 feet away. So We will spend a little bit of time just going through the proposed re-subdivision for you. If you concur with the staff report and with what we believe that creating this additional lot does not have any implications for impacts on wetlands or watercourses, we will take the next step, which is to go to the Planning and Zoning Commission and seek approval of our re-subdivision. And at that point only will we file an application or finalize our work for how that site will be developed. But we don't need to come back to you because there are no wetland impacts involved. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Huell and just have him quickly go through the plan.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Tim Huell from the Engineer of Records, BL Companies, 100 Constitution Plaza in Hartford. As Robin mentioned, we're looking at the parcel of 161 Post Office Road. The current lot is approximately 12.7 acres. It was created in 2005 in a subdivision that also created the parcel, the liquor store parcel that is kind of wrapped around our subject lot. Overall, the existing parcel contains a garage facility located in the southeast, which is towards the bottom right of the survey plan shown up on the board. And this plan was also included in the application package that you guys have. As previously mentioned, Eric Davidson of Davidson Environmental did a delineation in early 2023 and located two specific wetland resource areas. There's an unnamed stream which more or less forms the south and eastern borders of the subject property. And then there is bordering wetlands surrounding that. In addition, there are escarpment areas located adjacent to the wetland resources. Those are the pretty easily defined steeper slopes immediately surrounding the stream and the bordering wetlands. Other key features on the site, it does contain a good bit of forested area around the wetland and the stream. Pretty much everything from the center of the lot towards the west is open grassland, undeveloped areas. We did look into the FEMA mappings for floodplain, and this entire parcel is located within Zone X, so outside of the 100-year floodplain. And we also examined the drainage conditions of the existing lot. Approximately 2/3 of the lot will sheet flow towards the west and south, towards the wetlands and into the unnamed brook. Approximately 1/3 of the parcel with frontage along Raffia Road will sheet flow towards the street and into the street drainage system. There's a small portion of the lot located in the south with frontage along Post Office Road that will drain into Post Office Road. As we move forward into the proposed conditions creating the new parcel, I'll give a quick summary of the two parcels, the existing parcel to remain and the proposed parcel, starting first with the existing parcel to remain. This parcel to remain is approximately 10.29 acres. It'll have frontage on both Raffia Road and Post Office Road. All the wetland resource areas delineated by Mr. Davidson will remain on the existing parcel, the 10.29 acres. In addition, all of the escarpment areas will be remaining on the 10.29 acre parcel. There is a conservation restriction to satisfy the open space requirements of the original subdivision. That was located to the northeast. It's located, there's a line showing where the area is, and we have a clear label showing the area. I believe Robin is pointing to it here. Thank you. And just to quickly summarize, we do satisfy all the zoning requirements. I know that falls under the purview of the Planning and Zoning Commission, but we do have On the proposed subdivision plan included in the application, there's a table demonstrating compliance with all the necessary zoning requirements. And lastly, for this existing parcel, all the drainage pathways are to remain. We're not proposing any physical work on the lot. So pretty much this entire 10.29 acre lot is going to continue to drain towards the wetlands, with a small portion draining towards Post Office Road and a small portion draining towards Raffia Road. The proposed parcel is located up in the northwest corner. It's approximately 10.3 acres with frontage on Raffia Road only. At the closest point, the property is approximately 170 feet from the flagged wetland, and that would mean approximately 70 feet away from the upland review area. As mentioned with the existing parcel, all of the escarpment areas stay on the existing, therefore there's no escarpment areas located on the proposed parcel. All the zoning requirements for this existing parcel, all the zoning requirements for the proposed parcel are met, again, as shown on the subdivision plan and the table for zoning requirements. We also analyzed the drainage pathways for the proposed lot, and again, since there's no proposed physical improvements on the lot, the drainage will remain as currently existent, which is towards Raffia Road via sheet flow. We did provide an existing conditions drainage map in the submission set that demonstrates all the drainage pathways under existing conditions. And at the request of town staff, we provided a conceptual drainage map to demonstrate what potential drainage pathways could be in a future development. But again, we would like to emphasize at this time there is no full design plan. So this is merely to demonstrate that we have the ability with the proposed lot modification to maintain existing pathways. And finally, I would just like to mention too, with the location of the proposed parcel in relation to the wetland resource areas and the existing tree line, we did analyze the feasibility of the parcel to take advantage of solar energy techniques, and we feel it's adequately located to have provisions in any future development for solar energy techniques. There's plenty of open space. There's no tree line cover. We're not in and around wetland resource areas, so it's in prime location.
Thank you. So at this point, you're just cutting up redividing it.
Yes.
There's no development going on or anything like that.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. And if you did any development, eventually you'd have to come back if it was within our regulated areas, obviously.
That is correct.
Correct, okay. That sounds fine to me.
So you just be able to confirm the distance for the proposed lot to the wetlands again and to the escarpments? So you said like 78 or something, was that?
Yes. So I can go over and flip to the proposed drainage map. I believe it's I think it's the last plan sheet there. It shows in a little bit more clarity where the proposed lot is. It's so
Proposed lot is right here, I'm outlining it,
Yeah,
and you can see the wetlands,
yeah.
and this is the
conservation stuff.
upland review area, I believe, following
I have a highlighter. I can go over and mark that up. Yeah. It's a little hard to
There is a
follow with all the
wireless mic
contours.
there if you want
Yeah,
to
there
use
is
the
a-
wireless
yeah.
mic.
See the mic?
Just got to turn it on.
Is this the one you want to work off of?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. Okay. So just have to make sure I get the right
Right
line
line.
here. So the line I'm highlighting now is the upland review area.
Right.
It's a little curvy through the middle, but it's well away from the property.
Yeah.
From the proposed lot.
From the
Right,
proposed
right.
lot, correct.
Right, right.
And I'll do in another color, just the lot line, so you guys can see clearly. I know this has a lot of colors on it, but at least it helps kind of demonstrate.
Yeah, that's a lot
Yeah.
up there.
So-
Yeah.
Yep, so
Yeah.
as I mentioned previously, from the closest corner of the proposed lot to the wetland is approximately 170 feet.
Yeah.
To the upland review area is approximately 70.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, that answers it. Thank you.
Anybody questions? Questions to my left?
I'll make a motion to approve IW number 679, 161 Post Office Road, application for a re-subdivision, Garrett Homes LLC applicant, Mitchell Wagner, owners, 68, map 68, thank you, lot 232, BL zone with the following 2 site-specific conditions and 10 general conditions. Site-specific conditions are final plans will include a cover sheet with a sheet index. Number 2, final plans will include the 100-foot upland review area boundary line on both sheets labeled as SB1 and sheet AL1. And then the general conditions that are not crossed off because they don't apply in this situation.
Right.
Second.
So Kevin and Jenny, any discussion? No? To my left? No. Have roll call, please?
Donna Corbin Savinsky.
Yes.
Kevin Zorda.
Yes.
Virginia Higley, yes. Robert Hendrickson.
Yes.
Ann Collins.
Yes.
Nancy Martin.
Yes.
Phil Kober.
Yes.
7 in favor, motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck with your project.
They waited longer than they talked.
I know. We should have moved them up.
You done with this plan? I have the other sheet.
Next is enforcement reports. Is that where you're going to talk about this?
Nothing to enforce. That's my complaint form that
Okay.
you requested 2 meetings ago.
Okay. The report of planning staff?
Give me 1 second. Let me just double check that I have nothing.
While you're doing that, just can you give us an update on Vermont Castings?
Yankee
Anything?
Castings?
Yankee?
Castings.
Thank you.
So I have nothing to report, and I do not have an update on Yankee Castings.
Okay, thank you.
Also, there are no applications being received tonight.
Great. So you have no report?
No, I said no.
Okay, sorry, I missed that part. Anything under miscellaneous, anybody want to bring up?
New applications to be
No,
received.
no applications were received.
I move to adjourn.
Yeah, the zoning complaint was an update, and they're coming back to us on May 16th. So that's what that paperwork was on our desk. Okay,
now?
now you can.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes, it's 9:03.
9:02.
03.